How do you make money in real estate in New York City? Now, New York City historically has had some of the highest home prices in the United States. Rents are breathtaking, sale prices are breathtaking. So how do you make money in that environment? Well, there are a couple different ways to make money. If you're really serious about making a go at money in New York real estate, you'd really want to work with investment funds of people that want to be exposed to, what they call exposed to, New York City real estate. Now, if you're a beginner, that's honestly probably not within your reach, but let me just go over briefly, if you're not a beginner, so my thoughts on it. New York City real estate over the long term has done really, really well, but it has its ups and its downs. Lately, a lot of people have moved out of New York City. A lot of wealthier people have moved to other places. They've moved to Miami, they've moved down south, they've moved all over the place. So that's really put a hurt on New York City real estate. Crime is up, not as desirable, but it still has desire. But generally with New York, it comes back, and it's done that every time. So I think generally it's an international city and probably not a bad place to consider, but it's not really for a mom and pop type operator. And if you're a mom and pop type or newer, I have something for you. Just bear with me because I have a really amazing opportunity that you could do from New York City, but won't involve actually doing New York City real estate. It involves something much simpler. But for those of you who want to do it, I would say that you're going to want to work with other people's money, work with investment funds where people say, I want to have some New York City real estate. I believe in it. I want it as part of my portfolio, and therefore I want to invest in something. And if I were trying to learn that business, I would go to work with a company that does management successfully, that perhaps does development successfully in New York City, and I would learn the business by working in the business as an employee of someone who does it successfully. There's like the Related company and other companies that do that business. And if you look at something like Related, sure, are lots of their big executives, Ivy League graduates? Sure, absolutely. But there are lots of people working inside the organization who are not, who can do really well because they build up an understanding of how real estate works, they can build up a reputation, and they can build up a way to actually do deals as an individual. So you don't have to be a Harvard MBA to necessarily get in there. You can be at a lower level as long as you have something to bring to the table. But there are lots of developers like that. And if I was trying to learn New York City real estate, I would go work for someone who was successful at it, with an eye at being either an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur. What's an entrepreneur? Entrepreneur is someone inside the company that's going to come up with ideas to expand or ideas to do new projects. And after I build my reputation in the company and say, hey, I've got an idea, I'd like to develop this, or I'd like to develop that product. And if you're well liked in the company, there's a good chance you get some backing for that. But I think that's where you get the training for that kind of a play. Now, if you're in New York City and say, wait, Bob, that's not, I'm not going to do that. I want to know how do I do it as a mom and pop. My suggestion as a mom and pop would be to do the Overages business. The Overages business is the business that I do on a day-to-day basis, and it's related to foreclosures. And here's how it works. When a property is foreclosed because someone doesn't pay their real estate taxes or their mortgage, when the property sells for more than the debt that's owed, the former owner can claim that money. So I might ask, well, how does that work exactly? So what happens, let's say that a house, someone doesn't pay their real estate taxes for 4 years. And let's say it's sort of average house in America, which is a little over a $400,000 house. On average, that house is going to have about $8,000 a year in real estate taxes. And if you don't pay for 4 years, the tax collector will sell your house. They do not let you go past that. So if someone didn't pay $8,000 worth of taxes 4 years in a row, they owe $32,000 in taxes. They're going to have interest and penalties, probably double to $64,000. So they owe $64,000, which is a lot of money to come up with, and they may not be able to do it. So the tax collector sells their house at a public auction. At those auctions, there are lots of hungry bidders there. The bidding's going to start at $64,000, but it's not going to end there. It's more likely to end at $300,000 or so. And if you think about it from a bidder's perspective, they just bought a $400,000 house for $300,000. Do you think they're happy? Yeah, they're happy. They're very happy. Wouldn't you be if you get $100,000 off a house? Absolutely. So that house sells for $300,000 at the auction. But here's the thing. They only owed $64,000. So if you think about it, there's a $234,000 difference between what it sold for versus what was owed. And that $234,000 is called an overage. Sometimes they're also called overbids or excess funds, but that is the term for money that's left over when the property sells at that tax foreclosure auction. And the former owner qualifies to go claim that money. Now, they do have to put in an application, jump through a few hoops, not too hard, but just cross the T's, dot the I's, deal with the bureaucracy, and they'll give you a check. And the sadness of this is that most people have absolutely no idea that there's any money they could claim or they're eligible to claim. What they think is, they sold my house, I'm going to go find a new place to live, I've lost everything. First of all, they don't know how much the house sold for. That would be the start. But if they knew, and they knew this key thing that now you know that very few other people know, when the house sells for more than the debt, that extra money is available for the former owner to claim. But they have to make an application. So there's a great business that we've made by getting the lists of monies that are held, getting the contact information for the people that the money's owed to, reaching out to them and saying, hey, you're owed this money. We'd love to help you get it. That's our business. If you'd like us to work with you, we're happy to for a percentage of anything we recover. If we don't recover anything, it doesn't cost you anything. So you have nothing to risk. It is the best business because you take people who think they've lost everything and suddenly they find out it's a whole new day. They didn't lose everything. They get thousands, tens of thousands, occasionally even hundreds of thousands of dollars that comes back to them that they had no idea that they were ever eligible to get. One story that's one of my favorite stories about this. There's a woman who was in a homeless shelter in Hartford, Connecticut. She was there because she had lost her house to foreclosure and she didn't have anywhere to go. So she ended up in this homeless shelter. She was in her 60s. And we identified money she was owed, $32,000 to be specific. And we reached out to her, and you might question, how do you get in touch with this woman? Cell phone. That's why, because she had a cell phone. So we got her on the phone and we said, hey, we think we can get you this money. Would you be interested? And she's like, yeah, you betcha. I'd really be interested to not stay in this homeless shelter. And anyway, we got her the $32,000 and literally her whole life started over again. Because she had the money to get out of the shelter. She had the money to get new clothes. And as a matter of fact, she told me, because I met with her, normally I just mail people checks. I don't normally meet people in this business because we're just doing it by phone and email. But in that case, I have relatives in Connecticut because that's where I'm from. I was going to visit and I said, hey, if you want, I'm going up to Connecticut. I'm doing in 3 days. If you want, I'll just, meet with you and give you the check. I'd love to meet you anyway. We've been working together for a while and love to help you out. And so she said, sure, I'd love to meet you. So I went to meet with her. I met her in this homeless shelter. And let me tell you, I don't spend a lot of time in homeless shelters, as you might imagine. And it was jarring. I go into this homeless shelter in Hartford, Connecticut. It's winter, it's February, and there were like 400 people in the lobby. It was just people everywhere, little kids everywhere. It was just heartbreaking. Just like I had to practically step over people to get into the place. And I was like, this is so sad. It was really sad. Anyway, I met with Carrie, who's named my client. I met with her. I actually met her in the office for the homeless shelter because I think they thought I was some kind of a psycho killer or something, because I went in and there's the president of the homeless shelter, some other lady that, I don't know, she was some other executive there, and Carrie. And they're like, well, why are you here? I'm like, because I'm helping Carrie out. And I'm like, Carrie, I can't, I don't discuss people's business. And she said, I said, is it okay if I tell them? Because I'm a little uncomfortable here. And she said, yeah, just tell them everything. So then I explained, that I'd gotten her this money and I was here with the check. I showed them the check and they're like, oh, okay. I don't know what they thought was going on, but I guess there are not many people that show up with checks for $32,000 for people in homeless shelters. So maybe they just wanted to just see me for themselves. So anyway, Carrie and I ended up going out for lunch. We went over to the bank to open up a bank account for her and get the money deposited. I helped her look at another place which she rented and got into. And we did all that for her. And it was really just, I would say, just touching. It was touching because, she'd gotten injured at work. That put her out of work, and she never was able to get disability through her own fault. This wasn't like some external thing. She just didn't stick with it. She said every year they would change the workers' comp carrier, and she said I would get partway through the process, and then they changed the carrier, and I had to start over again. And I just gave up after a while. And she fell into a depression, and she had a serious injury at work. She had neck fractures. Maybe I'd be depressed too in that situation. So anyway, our job is to help people, not to judge people. So at the end of that story, Carrie is now living in a house. She's got a car. She got disability payment finally. She's on Social Security. She got a pension from work, all that's set, and now she's fine. And she said to me, she said, you know, I'm not rich, but I'm not homeless. And she said, it's a lot better. And she said, I just thank you. Every year at Christmas, she calls me and says, I just want to say thank you, thank the team, thank Marshall, thank Ashley. These are people on my team. And she said, I don't know where I'd be without you guys. And to me, that's why this business is so great. And back to your question, how do I work this from New York City? I know I got on that side story. You work this business by phone, by internet, and mail. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to go drop off checks. That was just something I did because it was more convenient. I thought it'd be interesting. But you don't have to do that. Instead, you can just literally do things by phone and mail and checks. So you can be in New York City, but not have to come up with huge sums of money to buy a place in New York City or try to figure out how to get investors. Instead, this is much simpler. This will just build you lump sums of money. And in the meanwhile, if you really want to do New York City real estate, my suggestion very much is work for a company that's doing what you want to do successfully and either become an entrepreneur working on projects for the company, or after you have sufficient experience and connections and reputation, go out and invest in your own real estate. I think that'll work best for you. So if you want to know more about the Overages business, I have something for you, free gift, which is a video on how the Overages business works, called Intro to the Overages Business. You should see a link up there. If you don't see the link, if you can't see it, then it just means your browser doesn't work that way. So just look down below, you'll see a link down there. Click on it, and I would be glad to show you the Overages business. And also at the end, if you decide you're interested, I'm happy to teach you the Overages business. That offers at the end of that video. So go click on the Intro to the Overages Business video, and I will see you over there.